Hello and welcome to the Hope at Work podcast. I am your host, Marcus Mossberger. With me today is doctoral student Ken Roden. And Ken, you recently started a new program that I find fascinating. Maybe start by telling the audience a little bit about yourself and this new program that you just enrolled in.
Yeah, thanks, Marcus, for having me. So my passion and work sit at the intersection of AI, go-to-market, and now leadership. I'm focused on the research about how AI is reshaping the work that we're doing. And then how do I turn that into something practical that business leaders and employees, no matter what their role is, can do that to find more meaning from work and be more effective and hopefully have more time to do things they love.
Perfect. This is why I like you, Ken. You and I have so much in common in terms of what you're passionate about and what you're interested in. So this new program that you're in, I know it's a business program and it's all about kind of transforming leadership, but there's an AI element to it, right?
Yeah, exactly. So the way that I kind of started this program and got involved was I was looking for something that really leveraged the business application as well as doing research on a specific topic. And so while I'm working, I'm able to look at what's happening in the world, see what we're happening in our day-to-day, talking to other individuals who are experiencing what's changing in our world, which is all centered around AI. What I'm particularly curious about is how are leaders going to change and how is leadership going to change? How's management going to change? And what's that going to look like in 5 years and maybe 10 years, given the rapid development and innovation we're seeing right now?
Gotcha. Okay. So I was at the Unleash HR event here recently in Vegas. And of course, like most events these days, it was all about AI. Every vendor there was talking about it. Every session was talking about it. What I think is really cool is that you're actually researching it. So we as vendors tend to talk a lot about it, regardless of whether or not there's a whole lot there, behind the curtains. But you're doing research about AI right now. And so, as you know, this is the Hope at Work podcast. We try to take an optimistic, positive point of view about the world of work. So what are you seeing in your research that hopefully gives you some hope about AI at work?
Yeah, this is why I love your podcast and I love what you're all about. Again, helping people see the important things about what they do for work. Recently, I was able to conduct a survey where I was actually able to talk to about 175 white-collar professionals. And we found some interesting things. One of the things that I think your listeners will really enjoy is something that's statistically significant. We found that employees who trust their leaders are much more likely to believe that AI will benefit their career. And why that matters is because there's a lot out there right now talking about the doom and gloom of AI. But really what we're hearing is that trust actually is where things matter in guiding employees through this transformation, and trust in their leaders is the driver. So we're actually seeing more opportunity to invest and, increase the scope of AI within an organization without having that fear, as long as there's trust in place. And I think trust and hope have a lot in common and they can play off each other quite well. So that actually was one of the most exciting results I found so far.
Yeah, I think you're right. I've had another gentleman on the podcast. His name's Corey Shear. He wrote a book about trust, the trust gap, closing it. And he and I have great conversations about this very topic, about how hope and trust are incredibly interrelated. You've kind of alluded to the fact, Ken, that so much is changing. I literally read earlier today about a very large organization that is literally merging their HR and IT departments.
Wow.
Okay. And again, when I was at this event last week, there was the suggestion by one of the speakers that AI is actually becoming one of the corporate pillars, like finance and HR. Like AI is going to be another organizational pillar. So again, there's no question that AI is becoming not only prominent, but it's going to become, commonplace, I think, in the near future, especially as we learned to use it. This is going to require a whole different approach to leadership. And you and I have had conversations in the past where you've said, the leadership playbook is being completely rewritten. Maybe talk a little bit about that and what exactly you mean by that.
Yeah. So I love the idea of HR and IT working better together, just to start that off.
Okay.
However, there's a caveat to what you said, which I find really interesting. I think you're seeing what a lot of organizations are doing, all of the people you're talking to. We're looking at AI being a pillar of our organizational strategy, or we are an AI first strategy. But what the research is showing is that companies who make that strategic decision of making it a pillar versus trying to have a specific goal around AI actually tend to see their proof of concepts fail, as well as employees not grok onto it. Meaning that employees need something to align themselves to. Maybe it's improved efficiency. Maybe it's pipeline growth if you're in a marketing or sales function. Or maybe it's a sentiment score that you want from employees and how you can improve their experience at work. Those are the things that you want to center your strategy around, and then have AI say, okay, well, how can we use AI to accelerate or improve this? And it's nuanced, but it's really important because there's so much being talked about with AI and there's so much exciting stuff happening, but it's almost like a distraction if you're not also thinking about the change you want to actually make. So I'm very pro HR and IT working more closely together, as long as HR still is thinking about what HR needs to, be the owner of and be the facilitator of, which is driving better outcomes with people strategy.
Gotcha. Okay. Let's talk about that a little bit more. So one of the speakers at the event that I was just at was Josh Burson. He's an absolute luminary in this space. I think we all can appreciate his, decades of experience and understanding how this world of HR technology is changing. And now we're seeing, again, just general corporate technology changing. Here's the way that he framed it. I'm curious to get your point of view, Ken. So essentially, we started with the traditional job. And this was in an environment of plenty of people, lots of talent available. And so we need this job done. I don't care if Marcus does the job or Ken does the job. We can take just about anybody and throw them into this job, and the work gets done. Fast forward to more recent times where it's not really about a job. It's about the person. It's about that individual brings a unique skill set. Ken, you have skills that I do not. And so the work may get done similarly, but you're going to do it better and differently than I am. And so the person and the skills end up being really prominent in the conversation. And of course, I think you and I both would agree, skills continues to be a really hot topic right now, reskilling, upskilling, all of those things. What Burson was saying is in the very near future, what we're really going to be looking at is not a job or a skill of a person. It's about agents, agentic AI. That was the main topic, I swear to you, like in just about every session that I was in this event. And the idea there is a lot of the work's going to be done by technology, and there will still be people in this idea of a human in the loop, right? I don't know if you've heard that term. And basically, we're going to be overseeing a lot of the technology, making sure it's not doing anything crazy. And everything's going to be broken down by tasks. And so there will be some tasks that only human beings can really do. And I think that will continue for a really long time. But anyway, what he was attempting to describe is how dramatically different things have gotten and they will get in the next few years. And I'm not talking about 10 years from now, Ken. I'm talking about 10 months from now. So I'm just curious to know, like, based on what I just described, like, what's your reaction to that? And then with your leadership lens, your hat on, what are the implications for leaders in a space where work is changing so dramatically?
Yeah. This is where I think we're going to see a lot of the conversation and energy really happen and occur over the next few years, because you're seeing some organizations, even in the last couple of weeks, say, we're going AI first. We're having no hiring of new people unless you can prove AI can't do it. But we're also seeing organizations who had some announcement like that a couple months ago or a year ago, and now reversing it and hiring back the people they had terminated. So I want to believe, and I think the vision of what AI can do is something closer to what you're talking about, humans involved, but heavy digital labor. I just don't think we're getting there as fast as maybe it's being talked about. Additionally, there are nuances to things that really require critical thinking and creativity. And I am not seeing AI being able to fully do that anytime soon. What I am seeing is what you brought up, a shift for leaders. And what I mean by that is a big technology company that we probably all use some of their products in our day-to-day life announced recently that they're going to be laying off or not hiring managers, not engineers, not marketers, not sellers, managers. And the reason is because coordination that managers often do is a tax for them. It is costly and it's expensive and it's also inefficient. And so by leveraging AI, they believe their theory is that they can do more with less. Now, you might say initially, okay, we can't get rid of managers, and also isn't that horrible? And my thing is, we should focus not on getting rid of managers, but transforming the role of a manager. A manager should be fluent or have AI acumen. They should also be expected to be able to do the people aspect of their job and do it well, which is something I don't think we've invested enough in. I know you kind of feel that way too. There's more opportunity to be more human leaders. And so I think we're going to see a need for managers to kind of re-skill themselves. The playbook that they've been using for the last 20 years isn't going to be the playbook that works anymore. And there's new players, as in people have different expectations, and there's new tools that they need to understand, not just have someone on their team understand.
Yeah. So do you think then, just thinking pragmatically, I think most folks would suggest the maximum number of people that a traditional manager can supervise in a way that, the people felt like they're being taken care of is like 12, maybe 15, right? I think most folks would agree with that. With new capabilities in AI and robotic process automation and other technologies where a lot of the questions and requests and approvals that a manager has to think about and act on today might actually be done for them. Do you think we're going to start to see a span of control of 30, 40, 50 people reporting up to managers? And then how does that change things?
Yeah, that's a really fascinating question. I hadn't really thought about it like that. But imagine if you told someone they'd have 40 employees right now, they'd be like, cannot do, that is not possible. But I do think AI could open up the possibilities. But here's what I would say, and I'd love your take on this. If you have 40 employees and you can really just track their production, are they moving the widget? How many calls are they doing? Or how many escalations are they handling over a certain amount of time? I think that can be managed. But the people aspect, I don't know if you can manage 40 people.
Yeah.
And when you think about where AI is starting to innovate and help with efficiency, it's in kind of white collar jobs where managers play the role of coach. They play the role of confidant. They play the role of motivator. They play the role of accountability mentor. So these are different roles that the manager has to do, and doing it for 40 people might be hard. But I'm curious what you think on this one.
Yeah, that's a really good point. There are certain industries and certain sectors and jobs where maybe a heightened span of control will be okay because there's maybe not a ton of interaction between the manager and their subordinates in general. And maybe those interactions are short and brief as it is. And so there's not a whole lot being lost there. But there's other industries and jobs where I like the word that you used. The manager serves as a coach. And what do you want from your coach? You want your coach to help you get better, to give you feedback, to help you perform. And that takes time and that takes interaction. So I think there are certain industries where the additional span of control could be very harmful. And then others where actually I think it'll be fine. But what I think is going to be interesting, Ken, and again, would love to get your point of view, is I do actually think a lot of this technology will allow those interactions to be more personalized, if you will. So if you think about it, just imagine in the future, you report to me, Ken, and I've got all of this technology that I say, I got a meeting coming up with Ken at 2:00 today. And so the technology says, okay, well, let me give you all of Ken's performance data for the last 3 months. I can tell you exactly what he's been working on, if he's been meeting his goals, if he's had good attendance, if he's been compliant with everything, and he kind of raves about him in terms of feedback from his peers or customers, any kind of complaints, anything and everything. Oh, and by the way, it's also going to say, don't forget, Ken took this behavioral profile. So we know that his behavioral characteristics are like this. He wants really direct feedback. He likes it when you provide numbers versus just subjective information. So don't forget about that when you're talking to him. In other words, maybe all of a sudden I have 40 people, but I don't have to prepare for an hour and a half or 2 hours for my conversation with you, Ken, because the technology gave me everything I needed to know in this summarized version in like 2 minutes. Wow. So I do think that, yes, it's problematic. There's no way that you can handle 40 people the same way as 4. But when technology empowers and enables you like that, you can do a lot with it. What's your reaction to that?
I think that is spot on. And the reason why is what AI is really doing is it's consolidating data and helping us make sense of it at mass scale. And it can pull from so much more. And now you and I as individuals can use generative AI tools to make sense of that data. Whereas before it was kind of held behind a wall of engineers, data scientists. But now you and I can make sense of it. And to your point, we can integrate several tools that help us get the most out of those interactions and make them richer conversations, human to human conversations. There's a startup I've recently been kind of following what they're working on called Tenor, and they are helping with improving managers' conversations. Help me with a compensation conversation with an employee who's not happy with their increase. Help me with conflict resolution between 2 employees, and it will create AI avatars that will help you practice. And actually that data can be aggregated and sent to their manager or their HR leader to give them an idea of how that person's doing. But what I think is so exciting is, to your point, is like the data and the functionality, the application is there for you to be able to do your job better and connect better as a human. And I think that's probably some of the most exciting stuff that's happening right now.
Hey, I'm Katie Van Horn.
And I'm Jackie Clayton.
We're your hosts of the Inclusive AF podcast, where we take on DEI, leadership, and HR without all the corporate fluff.
That's right. We've got decades of experience, a lot of opinions, and zero tolerance for performative anything.
Every week, we dig into what it really takes to build inclusive workplaces with honesty, strategy, and a few side eyes.
We'll talk about the tough stuff, power dynamics, privilege, what's broken in the system, and how we can all do better.
And don't worry, it's not all heavy. We bring receipts, laughs, and real talk from people actually doing the work.
Think of it as your weekly dose of truth, tips, and a little tea to help you lead with intention and show up for your people.
So if you're ready to push past the buzzwords and get into the actual work of inclusion,
you're in the right place. So subscribe to the Inclusive AF podcast.
New episodes drop every week.
Catch us on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts.
We'll be here breaking it down one inclusive convo at a time.
I agree. The role-playing capability of AI, giving a manager the opportunity to practice a really hard conversation.
Yeah.
What a great use case. Now, you also said something else that I want to latch onto for a moment, and that is the fact that, at the end of the day, all technology is meant to serve humans, right? And in large part, it's helped us to make better decisions at work. And so I do think there's an opportunity there for us to pursue how can we leverage information kind of in the flow of work to guide those conversations and to ensure that decisions that we make are improved. So I'll give you an example. I was literally having a conversation today about reporting and analytics. Think about traditional like software and you're like, okay, I've got this set of dozens and dozens of reports and I can pull information. But the traditional view of that information is like, okay, here's like, some anomalies in turnover. And all it shows is, the turnover maybe went up a little bit. It doesn't give you much data. And I think what people are looking for in the future is I want to be able to essentially conversationally ask my technology, hey, what's going on with turnover in the organization? And I want the technology to look for those anomalies and say, well, Ken, let me tell you what's going on. First of all, you've had a 35% increase in your highest performers leaving the organization. How does it know that? Because it has our performance data, and it can see these people scored in the top 10% of their last performance evaluations, and more of them are leaving the organization. You've also lost more females. You've also lost more people after 1 year of hire, which suggests your hiring practices aren't very good. My point is, we're used to these traditional like reports and analytics, but they don't tell us anything. And that's what I think people want. I want to be able to make better decisions for and about my people. And I don't want to have to dig through layers and layers of technology to get to it. So how do you see that evolving over time and how that impacts a leader in an organization?
Yeah, I see AI really being able to be that co-pilot that Microsoft intended, right? Mm-hmm. They really co-opted the word, but the idea that AI is your buddy. And there's some research that was done at the end of last year. It was actually around physicians. And when they worked with AI, they outperformed both AI and physicians together. And so 1 and 1 really could make 3 when we think about this. And so to your question, and how do we help with decision making? AI is going to be your partner in crime. And I think we are very close to the days where you can ask those questions. Visier, who does HR analytics, has come out with a product V to help with that. Nigel Diaz in the UK is working on a project very similar. These people are like, how can I make this data more accessible and digestible by asking a question versus saying, what's my attendance rate look like? Or what's my retention rate? I can actually ask complex questions that help solve real problems for me. I think we are going to be headed there. There's tools right now that are being worked on. They're not perfect yet, but that are able to show a view that you and I would share. Maybe it's a retention dashboard. And I'm able to say, I'm not very proficient in reading analytics, but you're advanced. And it will help me analyze it for the level that I'm at and make sense of it, and help you at the level you're at, so that we both can get the value we're looking for from it, but we're not held back by what actually was presented, which I think is going to democratize a lot of intelligence and really change how work gets done and really be that partner that you are looking for.
I love that. That is what I'm hoping to see as well. And that's something we've talked a little bit about within Infor. We have this, a behavioral profile called Talent Science that looks at 23 different characteristics, behavioral characteristics. And what if the technology knew all of mine and it knew, boy, is this guy not very data oriented. So I'm going to very clearly, plainly explain the information that I'm, conveying to Marcus. Whereas Ken, I know I don't have to do that. And when that happens, obviously, again, that's that level of personalization that I think we'll see over time. When you think about genomic medicine, and eventually you're going to have a Tylenol that's like Ken's Tylenol. It's made explicitly for your genomic makeup. And I would love to see AI go down the same path where I've got Marcus's AI assistant, and it knows this guy's constantly missing meetings. Make sure that, you're sending him information in a way that is a reminder for him that you got this coming up. Whereas I don't have to worry about that with Ken. That personalization is key.
Yeah, it's interesting. We released Workspaces at the end of last year and had a digital assistant come out, and the ability that someone could have a partner with them to help them answer questions that used to take so much time, like that makes the work experience better, because you don't have that burnout of like looking for that thing or getting an answer to a question that, you might have to reach out to someone. You could just get it, based off what you're looking for. And I think that's what's really going to help employees and gives me hope.
Yeah, me too. Good. I love it. Good transition. So I know that you're doing a lot of research. You're talking to a lot of people as well. You're collecting stories. So have you talked to any leaders who are getting this whole transition into AI right? Or have you talked to any that are getting stuck? Like, do you have any kind of anecdotal evidence for us so far in your research?
Yeah. So everyone's learning, it feels like, and they're really open to being humble and sharing what they're learning. But I want to tell you just, how about 2 people? One leader I was talking to was really gung-ho about their team implementing AI, and kind of gave them the green flag, go, do whatever you can. And what he reflected on is he actually took maybe a more traditional approach to leadership, where he was empowering his team to be the experts. But what actually happened was because AI was changing so much, because he gave them so much opportunity to experiment, they actually outpaced him. And he actually fell behind and didn't have a good grasp on what they were doing. And even though they were more productive, he didn't know they were more productive. So it actually created a bit of friction because the employees felt that he didn't know what he needed to know because of all this AI stuff happening. And then he was frustrated because he didn't realize that they were more productive and that they could have been helping more support the business. And so that was an opportunity that he shared. Hey, this is where I actually felt like I needed to lean in more as a people leader and actually having some acumen. The flip side of that is I recently had the chance to talk to a C-level executive who in her previous life was a writer. And she created a custom GPT, a digital twin, if you will. And she shared writing that she had done and emails that she had done, uploaded in. She uploaded some personality assessments as well and created a virtual version of her. She had a global team. This allowed her team to talk to her, get ideas from her, get insights from her. It also helps her produce a weekly newsletter that goes out to her team to keep them updated on what's happening. And it didn't replace her, but it amplified her presence. And I had the chance to talk to her team too. And we didn't talk about AI at all. They have trust and faith in her. They believe that she is part of this journey with them. They also believe that she cares about them as a leader, and that they also believe that she's part of the journey of learning AI. And that to me was a great example of, you can't decide that you're going to just watch this happen. It's really a player coach mindset that leaders seem to be succeeding with in this transition.
Wow. Okay. So what I'm hearing is there's certainly not a one size fits all approach to this, right? We're all going to have to approach it differently. But, one of the things that I've maintained for a long time that's always sounded counterintuitive is that the more we embrace these new technologies, the more human our work actually becomes, because we're taking the administrative, transactional, manual things and we're giving it to AI, we're giving it to agents. And by doing so, frees us up to have more human interaction with our people. And I would hope that that good leaders recognize the need and the opportunity then to create what I call authentic relationships with their people. That's something I don't see as often as I'd like, is that authenticity at work. And I'm hoping that's one of the big benefits of leveraging AI, is that being able to become a lot more prominent.
I think you're spot on. The more we get involved in using AI in our day-to-day, whether it's at home or in our work life, the need for human connection that's meaningful is going to drive society forward, right? If you're constantly talking to bots, if you're constantly talking via digital channels, you're not actually getting the human experience. It actually alters your state of reality. There's been tons of research on it.
Yeah.
What's going to matter more is your leaders and your employees connecting with each other on a human to human level as much as they can to really drive the organization forward. We probably aren't going to have AI run companies in the next 20 years. That's just my theory. So there are going to be people working together. So really being able to establish and build upon a human connection, I think is going to drive really true organizations forward because they've implemented AI and they've leaned into the human part. But that's just my take. I'm curious, where are you seeing things going, and where do you see, you mentioned authenticity, but what are some areas that you think people could maybe work on a little bit more?
Well, it's funny. You go just back to the basics, right? Of human interaction and collaboration. It's emotional intelligence. Okay, Ken, it's likability. I mean, these are like basic things that, I feel like, I studied in my undergraduate psychology degree many moons ago, that we're just, realizing, this stuff's actually really important. And it's become more important because more and more of our interaction at work will be human to human, and it won't be simple conversations of, hey, did you put that box on top of that box? Because the technology will already have told us, yes, we already did that. We don't need to talk about that. What we need to talk about is that this customer had this really crazy complex order and it got messed up and I need to know what to do about it. Yeah. And so I need really good communication, collaboration, problem solving, critical thinking, skills that, I just don't think kids coming out of college have refined those skills enough. So that might actually be a good transition into my last big question for you. During the research that you've done, I'm assuming that leaders are going to need to develop their own new skills too. And what are some of those new skills and behaviors that AI is essentially asking for from leaders?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking that, because I think one of the things that has surprised me talking to so many leaders right now is they are just overwhelmed by being told that they're supposed to do so much.
Yeah.
And they're being asked to keep up to speed on everything in their day-to-day jobs, as well as AI, as well as being a great leader. And so what I've worked to do is actually ground it into 4 pillars. Think about, 4 boxes, and something that you're working on, just gut check. Do they fit in one of these? And if they don't, they're not worth your time. The first one is AI acumen, and it's AI acumen, not fluency. You don't need to be an expert at AI. You just need to know the limitations and what's possible. And that's where you're going to be able to build trust with your team, as well as your leaders that you work with, that you know how to leverage this technology to accelerate. This is different than the way of the past. The one that aligns with that, which we've talked about a few times, is human-centered enablement. You need to support people through the change, leveraging EQ, leveraging transparency, trust, building rapport, really leaning into the human aspect for all the reasons that we just talked about. These 2 other ones are a little bit different. So I'll start with one that might sound familiar: principled decision-making. The idea that as a leader, you are responsible for acting in a way that sets up your company to not get sued, 1, but 2, that builds trust with your employees and your customers. With using AI, you are leveraging data, customer data, employee data, financial data. You need to act in a way that is responsible and respectful of those people. And the reason is, there's a moral reason, which I hope is obvious to everyone on the call, but there's a governance aspect to it. There are laws now, federally, state, globally, across the world that are different, and you need to adhere to them. So you won't be able to do business in these countries or states if you don't follow them. And the last one is one that we haven't really talked about very much, but it's an emerging topic that I'm kind of finding in trends and pockets. It's the idea of adaptive imagination. And I really struggle with the concept of imagination being a corporate or company value or skill set. But the idea that you need to be able to think about the world beyond what it is right now. AI is changing so fast. The skills that you have on your team might need to evolve, but also there might be skills that your employees already have that you can leverage furthermore. And there's technology at the same time that maybe has been created, but thinking about the art of the possible. But along with that, it's at the speed, being adaptive. So not doing it kind of slowly year over year. You kind of need to be able to set up your team to think about this moving at a steady pace that moves at the rhythm of business. And so leading with the unknown, leaning into curiosity and not trying to control everything, but keeping that agile approach is where I'm seeing some really interesting stuff coming up with these leaders that I'm talking to right now. So
yeah,
okay, just to wrap it up, it was acumen, human-centered enablement, principled decision-making, and adaptive imagination.
Okay. Those are great. Definitely 4 pillars that I think we can all apply regardless of our industry or our role. So you might think that my favorite would be the human-centered, but it's not, Ken. You know what my favorite is the idea of adaptive imagination, I think is what you called it.
Yeah.
And I just think people who are willing to be creative and that are naturally curious and that recognize that the way that we are doing things today does not have to continue in this same way, shape, or form. I think those people are going to have a ginormous advantage at work because they're willing to look at things completely differently. It's kind of funny too, even like when we hear about AI hallucinating and how bad that is, I'm like, well, I don't know. Sometimes maybe one of those hallucinations might be good. It might be like, hey, I've never thought of it that way. But I love the fact that you called out creativity and curiosity in that pillar.
Yeah, you bring up a really good point, and this is something you and I have talked about many times in our day-to-day lives, that, if you looked at a vendor's website, doesn't matter the industry, company, whatever, and then you looked at their competitors and they all said the same thing, what differentiation does that have? Imagine we're in a world where everyone's using the same AI tools. Creativity isn't part of what's coming out in the output, but if we're all using whatever custom LLM that we have, you're still going to get similar outputs. So the creativity of humans and the imagination, the curiosity, those are the things that are going to set your company aside to attract your buyer. Think of unique ways to service them. Think of unique ways to do supply chain. So I would really encourage, people take, your thoughts on it. Maybe hallucination actually is a good thing for a marketing campaign or for, a strategy.
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah.
So Ken, one last question. I know we got to wrap things up, but I know you're in the midst of this doctoral program. You've got a ways to go, but maybe some advice for the audience. You mentioned how complicated things are right now. We've got new technologies, new AI. There's, dozens and dozens of agents that are already out there. What advice would you give to a manager, especially a new manager, on navigating AI right now? I really like your very practical advice of don't, just go for AI acumen. Don't try to be an expert. But what else would you tell them that they can do today in terms of preparing them for the world of AI becoming a much more prominent part of their lives?
Yeah. The first thing I would say is you are okay. Whatever you know right now is okay. And what's going to help you is just by starting to dive in. Don't take this AI transformation, wait on the sidelines. Be an active experimenter. Pick a few tools, a tool, and just understand its limitations, what's possible. You don't need to read every LinkedIn post that goes live. You don't need to read every Wall Street Journal article. Just make sure that you're getting some practical application and use. There's so many free tools out there that you can leverage. The second thing is, along with that is, think about how AI can help you do your job better. So what I've actually done in the past is I looked at my calendar for a week and I said, okay, what are things that I could have AI help me with or augment? And if I could have it make an impact of saving me more than 30 minutes, I gave it a try. And so I would just say, look at your calendar. What do you think AI could help with? Maybe it's taking notes. Maybe it's helping you outline your notes for a meeting or a presentation you have. Maybe it's help building a deck. And then the last one is, don't let progress be stalled by perfection, especially if you're a leader. Like, your employees as a manager will want you to share what you're learning because they're also learning too. So, if you don't feel like you don't know things or you don't have it all under control, that's okay. Share with your team what you're learning so that they can feel part of it. You're going to build trust. You're going to build a strong working relationship with them, and you're going to inspire them to do more of the same thing.
Yeah. Great practical advice. I like the idea too of looking at your calendar and going, hey, what could AI do for me? I have this little Post-it note literally right here that says, what can I do better? Because sometimes I feel like I'm going to get complacent if I'm not constantly thinking about, hey, how can I evolve and get better? Maybe I should change my Post-it note to say, what can AI do better than me to free me up to do other things that I enjoy more?
And that's the goal. Save time. They don't help. Figure out how it can help you, not how you can just use AI. I think that's a great mindset.
Yeah, love it. Ken, really appreciate you taking the time. I hope your doctoral program goes well. I would love to have you back on the podcast when you've completed your research and you've got more to share and more insights. I assume there are books in your future, lots more data, so I can't wait to continue the conversation with you.
Thanks, Marcus. This was a pleasure. Always a great time with you.